Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be kind of looking at World War II,
Okay.
but in a way that I think a lot of people haven't really thought about before.
That's good.
We're going to be going all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Germany, we've got France, we've got Japan,
Wow.
we've got Senegal, and all these different countries, all these different stories show how World War II is still impacting us today.
That's fascinating. I mean,
Yeah.
It really shows just how globally significant that event was.
Right.
That it's still having these kind of ripple effects, decades and decades later.
Exactly. So to start off, I think this is a good one to start with.
Okay.
We're going to Germany, and there was this 99-year-old former Nazi camp secretary.
Oh, wow.
Her name is Irmgard Furchner, and she just lost her appeal against her conviction
Okay.
for complicity in over 10,000 murders.
That's a heavy one to start with.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So this case has caused quite a stir, obviously.
Well, of course, it's such
Yeah.
a complex issue. I mean, Germany's really taken a unique approach
Yeah.
to dealing with its past and,
Yeah.
actively pursuing justice for Nazi crimes, even after all this time.
Right.
But it does raise a lot of questions, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, what does justice even look like at this point so long after everything happened?
Yeah.
Can you really achieve justice?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it just kind of reopening these old wounds? And
Yeah. And is there like a statute of limitations on justice? Especially when you're talking about something as horrific as the Holocaust,
Right. And I think this case also brings up that whole concept of complicity.
Yeah, what does that even mean?
Right. Like, what does it mean to be complicit?
Especially in this context.
Exactly. I mean, in Furchner's case, she wasn't directly involved in the murders.
Right.
But the court found that working as a secretary at the camp,
At Stutthof.
yeah, at Stutthof, meant that she was still,
Involved.
part of the system
Right.
that allowed those atrocities to happen.
It's a really difficult question about individual responsibility within a larger system of oppression.
It's fascinating, though, because it reminds us that history isn't always about these huge battles and famous generals and stuff.
Yeah.
It's about people.
Yeah.
Like this secretary,
Everyday people.
Yeah, making choices.
Making choices in really difficult situations.
Under extraordinary circumstances and how those choices contribute
Absolutely.
to the course of history.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move from the courtroom to the beaches of Normandy
Okay.
for the 80th anniversary of D-Day.
Oh, wow.
It was a big deal, obviously a big commemoration.
Yeah.
But it also felt very relevant to what's going on in the world right now.
Right, with the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard not to see the parallels.
Biden's statement at the ceremony was particularly powerful.
I was going to say, do you remember what he said?
Yeah, I do. He said, "To surrender to bullies, to bow down to dictators, it's simply unthinkable." Powerful words.
Yeah, especially standing there on those beaches,
Oh, absolutely.
where they fought against the Nazis.
Yeah, where they fought for freedom.
It makes you think about how those who fought in World War II would view the situation in Ukraine today.
Right, and how their sacrifices are informing how we respond to this new threat.
Yeah, are those lessons being heeded?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, so all this to say, D-Day wasn't just about remembering the past.
Right.
It was about connecting it to the present.
Exactly, using the lessons of the past.
Yeah, and understanding how they shape
to guide us today.
Our actions and our choices.
Yeah, it's like that saying,
yeah,
those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
Exactly. But, amidst all the seriousness of D-Day, there was this really sweet story.
Oh, yeah, what was that?
So a 100-year-old World War II veteran.
Wow.
And his 96-year-old bride.
Oh, that's lovely.
They decided to get married near the D-Day beaches.
How sweet.
And they even got to attend the state dinner with Macron and Biden.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic.
It was just this really heartwarming moment.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that even in the midst of all this, the weight of history, there's still room for love and joy, hope, and those human stories.
Right.
They're so important for connecting us to the past.
Yeah, they make it real.
Yeah, they make it real and help us understand that.
Yeah.
Behind the big events, the battles and the politics, there are real people with real lives and real emotions.
Okay, speaking of stories that highlight the war's lasting impact, let's shift gears and head over to Japan.
Okay.
Now, this is kind of a crazy story, but they had to ground flights at Miyazaki Airport recently because, get this, they found a suspected World War II bomb
Wow, are you serious?
Yeah.
I mean, I know they find those every now and then,
right.
but at an airport, that's wild.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think that something from so long ago can still be a danger today.
It really drives home the point that the past isn't really past, you know?
Right. It's not just something in history books.
Yeah.
It can literally come back and disrupt our lives.
Exactly. And when we're talking about Japan, we can't forget about the atomic bombings.
Of course.
And the ongoing impact they have.
Yeah.
And I think a really powerful example of that is the story of Michiko Kodama.
I don't know that name.
She was a young girl when Hiroshima was bombed.
Oh, wow.
And she survived.
Wow. I can't even imagine what that must have been like.
Right. And her story, it's just one of many, but it speaks volumes about the resilience of the human spirit, but also about the devastating and long-lasting effects of those bombs.
Absolutely.
Both physically and psychologically.
The scars are still there.
Oh, yeah.
Both on the land and in the people.
It's incredible to think about what those who survived went through and how they managed to rebuild their lives.
It's a testament to human strength.
Yeah.
But also a reminder of the terrible cost of war.
Absolutely.
A cost that continues to this day.
Yeah. And it's not just in Japan.
Right.
We see it all over the world.
Exactly. These echoes of World War II, they're everywhere.
Everywhere. You know, it's interesting. We often focus on the major players in the war, like Germany, Japan, the U.S., the U.K. But there are so many other stories that get overshadowed.
Yeah.
And one that really caught my eye was about Senegal.
Oh, yeah.
They recently commemorated the 80th anniversary of this horrible event, the massacre of West African troops by French forces.
Yeah, that's a really dark chapter.
Yeah.
That doesn't get talked about enough.
So these troops were fighting for France, right?
Yeah, they were part of the French army.
But they faced all this discrimination.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, colonialism was still very much a reality back then. And these soldiers were treated as like second-class citizens.
And it ultimately ended in this horrific massacre.
Yeah, a stark reminder that the Allied front wasn't always so united.
Right. There were these internal conflicts and tensions.
Exactly. And it challenges that whole narrative of the good guys versus the bad guys.
It wasn't so black and white.
Not at all. I mean, these Senegalese troops, they were fighting for freedom against fascism.
Right.
But they were also fighting against oppression.
Within their own ranks.
Yeah, within the very system they were serving.
So this event raises all sorts of questions about how colonial legacies continue to shape relations between nations.
Right, how the past continues to haunt the present.
It makes you wonder how different things might be if these injustices had been acknowledged and addressed.
Right, if we had actually learned from our mistakes.
Instead of sweeping them under the rug.
Exactly, because these stories, they matter.
They do.
They're essential for understanding the true scope of the war.
And its impact.
Yeah, and they remind us that history is not just about dates and battles.
Right.
It's about people and their experiences.
You know, this idea that seemingly isolated events are connected to these larger historical forces.
Right.
It keeps coming up in our conversation.
It's a recurring theme.
And it makes me think about all the talk these days about the potential for global conflict.
Yeah, there's been some pretty alarming stuff coming out of Al Jazeera lately.
Yeah, like they're saying the world might be sleepwalking into another major war.
It's a scary thought.
It is.
Yeah.
And I can't help but wonder if there are any parallels between the lead up to World War II and what's happening in the world today.
That's a good question.
Right.
I mean, there are definitely some similarities.
Like what?
Well, the rise of nationalism, for one thing.
Okay, yeah.
We're seeing that in a lot of different countries.
Right.
Economic instability is another factor. And, of course, the breakdown of international cooperation.
Yeah, it feels like everyone's kind of retreating into their own corners.
Exactly. And those were all factors that contributed to the outbreak of World War II.
So it's like history is rhyming.
It can feel that way sometimes.
But, you know, history doesn't have to repeat itself.
That's true. We have the benefit of hindsight.
Right. We can learn from the mistakes of the past.
And hopefully avoid making those same mistakes again.
But are we, though?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It feels like the shadow of World War II looms large over our present.
It does. It shapes our anxieties.
Yeah.
And influences how we approach conflicts today.
So do you think we're heeding the lessons of World War II?
I wish I had a simple answer for you.
Yeah.
It's complicated. I mean, on the one hand, you've got the existence of nuclear weapons.
Okay.
which many believe act as a deterrent.
Right, because the consequences would be so catastrophic.
Exactly. So in that sense, the memory of World War II might actually be preventing another global conflict.
Okay, so that's good.
Right. And then you've also got the interconnectedness of the global economy.
Yeah.
Countries are so reliant on each other now that war just doesn't make economic sense.
Okay, so there's hope there.
There is. But on the other hand, you've got the rise of authoritarianism.
Right.
The spread of misinformation.
Yeah.
And the growing competition for resources.
And those are all things that can lead to conflict.
Exactly. It's like a tinderbox waiting for a spark.
That's a pretty grim picture.
It's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a complex and concerning landscape.
And it sounds like there are valid points on both sides of the argument.
There are. I mean, history shows us
that
both peace and conflict are possible.
So where do you stand on this?
Me, personally?
Yeah. As someone who's studied this history so deeply.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
What gives me hope?
Yeah.
And what worries me the most? Well, you know, that's the question I think that keeps a lot of us up at night.
Yeah.
On the one hand, I think the awareness of history that we have, and, you know, the world is so interconnected now in a way that it never has been.
Right.
You know, so there are a lot of reasons to believe that countries would want to avoid another global conflict.
Yeah, it would be bad for business, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's always the potential for things to spiral out of control.
Right, like one small conflict.
Yeah, some kind of regional dispute could escalate and then draw in other countries.
And especially with all the new technology.
Oh, yeah.
And the way that wars are fought now.
Cyber warfare, information warfare.
Right.
It's a whole different ballgame.
It makes it so unpredictable.
Absolutely, and that's what worries me the most.
Yeah, that fear of the unknown.
Exactly.
Well, it's definitely a lot to think about.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you laying it all out for us.
Sure.
It seems like we're at this really crucial point in history.
I think so.
Where the lessons of the past could either help us create a more peaceful future.
Exactly.
Or we could just completely ignore them.
Right, and that's why I think it's so important for people to be aware of history, to engage in critical thinking.
Yeah.
You know, don't just take things at face value.
Right. Question everything.
Exactly. And be active participants in shaping the future.
So what you're saying is that we all have a responsibility.
Yeah, I think so.
To learn from the past and to work towards a better future.
Absolutely.
You know, it's funny how we started this conversation with all these seemingly random stories.
Right. A trial in Germany.
Yeah. A bomb in Japan.
A ceremony in France.
Yeah. And a commemoration in Senegal.
It seemed like a pretty eclectic mix.
Yeah, but as we've talked, it's become clear that they're all connected.
They are. They all tie back to World War II.
To this one massive historical event.
And its ongoing legacy.
That's the power of history, isn't it?
It is. It helps us connect the dots.
Yeah.
And make sense of the world around us.
So as we wrap things up here, what would you say is the most important takeaway?
From our deep dive into the echoes of World War II.
Yeah. What do you want our listeners to remember?
I think the main thing is that the past is never really over.
Okay.
It continues to shape our present.
Yeah.
And it's up to each of us to learn from it.
So that we don't repeat the same mistakes.
Exactly.
Well said. So for you, dear listener, we hope you've enjoyed this journey through history.
And that it sparked your curiosity.
To learn more about World War II.
And its enduring legacies.
Remember, history is not just about the past.
Right.
It's about understanding our present.
And shaping our future.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
And until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep striving to make the world a better place.